Hey family, welcome to Mr. Gray Family, where every story begins with us. He didn't knock. The hospital doors slammed open so hard that the sound echoed down the corridor like a gunshot. Travis stepped in with fire in his chest and anger riding every breath. His jaw was tight, fists clenched, eyes scanning like a man ready to confront everything he thought he knew. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to stop something. Where is she? He barked at the front desk, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. The nurse looked up, startled. "Sir, you can't." "I said, where is Jade?" There it was, her name, the name he hadn't spoken out loud in months, but never stopped carrying. No answer came fast enough, and Travis didn't wait. He turned, already moving, following the sound he didn't realize he'd recognize instantly. Faint cries, hurried footsteps, urgency in motion. Something was happening. Something big, and whatever it was, Jade was at the center of it. His heart pounded harder the closer he got. Anger fueled him forward. Questions chased him. Regret followed quietly behind. Then he reached the door, delivery room 3, and without thinking twice, he pushed it open. Everything stopped. Not the room, not the people, not the movement, just him, because the moment his eyes landed on Jade, his entire world froze. She was on that bed, breathing hard, gripping the sheets, hair damp against her forehead, pain and strength mixed across her face in a way he had never seen before, and yet somehow understood instantly. Jade, his Jade, but not his anymore. "Push, Jade, you're almost there," a doctor called out. Travis couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe right, because standing right beside her, holding her hand, was another man. Calm, focused, grounded, not confused, not angry, not lost, present, and steady. Harrison. Travis didn't know his name yet, but he knew exactly what he was. The man who took his place, the man who stood where he should have been. And that realization didn't hit slowly. It hit all at once, like everything he thought he had control over, slipping through his fingers in real time. Jade turned her head. Their eyes met, and for a second, everything between them came rushing back. The love, the fights, the silence, the night she walked away, all of it, sitting right there in that one look. Travis. She said his name softly, not shocked, not afraid, just real, and that hurt more than anything, because she had already accepted this moment. He hadn't. "Sir, you need to step back," a nurse said, moving toward him, but Travis didn't hear her. His eyes had dropped, locked onto something else. A monitor, bright numbers, fast beeping, and then he saw it. 3 separate heartbeats. 3, not 1, not 2, 3. His brows pulled together, confusion crashing into everything he thought he understood. "What is that?" he muttered under his breath. No one answered him, because in that room, everyone already knew, except him. He came to stop her, but what he saw broke him. "Let me ask you something. Have you ever lost someone, not because you stopped loving them, but because you didn't understand them when it mattered most? Have you ever walked away thinking you had time, only to realize later time had already moved on without you? Because right now, Travis is standing in a moment he can't control, watching a life he used to be part of continue without him, and it's hitting him all at once. The anger, the confusion, the jealousy, the regret, all of it crashing together, because this wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this, not without him. "Jade, what is going on?" he finally said, his voice no longer strong, just heavy. Another contraction hit her. She cried out, gripping tighter. Harrison leaned in closer. "Breathe. I've got you. Just breathe." Travis flinched at that, at the comfort, at the ease between them. That should have been him. That used to be him. But now, he was just a man standing at the edge of something he no longer belonged to. Jade looked at him again, and in her eyes, there was no anger, no bitterness, just truth, and maybe a quiet kind of closure. But Travis wasn't ready for that, not yet, because his mind was still stuck on one thing. 3 heartbeats, 3 lives, 3 questions he didn't have answers to, and deep down, one terrifying realization started to form: what really happened between them. And how did everything change this much? Before we go any further, if this moment already has you thinking, if you've ever been in a situation where love, timing, and choices didn't line up the way you hoped, go ahead and like this video, drop a comment, and tell me, have you ever lost someone and only understood their value too late? And if you're new here, subscribe, because stories like this, they don't just entertain you, they stay with you. Welcome to Mr. Gray Family, a storytelling universe built for people who crave meaning, emotion, and unforgettable narratives. Here, every story begins with a spark and ends with a feeling you'll carry long after the video ends. Love, betrayal, family, secrets, lessons, it's all here, wrapped in immersive narration that makes you forget everything else. If you're searching for stories that pull your heart, challenge your mind, and keep you coming back, subscribe now. Your story begins the moment you choose to stay. And trust me, you're going to want to stay, because what Travis is about to learn will change everything he thought he knew about Jade. Forever. The room didn't slow down for Travis, but his mind did. Everything around him blurred into motion. Nurses moving, machines beeping, voices giving instructions, but none of it landed properly, because he was stuck on the image in front of him. Jade, in pain, another man, holding her hand, and 3 heartbeats, still echoing in his head. He took a step forward, slow, uncertain, like the ground beneath him wasn't steady anymore. Jade. His voice came out lower this time, stripped of that earlier anger. What is this? She didn't answer immediately. Another contraction hit. Her body tensed, fingers tightening around the sheets. Harrison leaned closer again, his voice calm, controlled. Stay with me. You're doing good. Just breathe through it. Travis clenched his jaw. That tone, that familiarity, that comfort, it hit him deeper than he expected, because it wasn't forced. It wasn't awkward. It was natural, like this man had been here. Every step of the way, Jade exhaled slowly, trying to steady herself. Then finally, she looked at Travis again, and this time, her voice came out clearer. Travis, you shouldn't be here. Not harsh, not cold, just honest. And somehow, that honesty landed harder than anger ever could. I shouldn't be here. Travis let out a short, disbelieving breath. Jade, I get a call telling me you're in the hospital and you expect me to just stay away? I didn't say stay away, she replied, her voice tightening slightly as another wave of pain built. I just didn't expect you to come in like this. Like what? He shot back, frustration creeping in again, like someone who deserves answers. Harrison finally looked up, not aggressive, not defensive, just aware. His eyes met Travis's for a brief moment. There was no challenge in them, no need to prove anything, and that made Travis even more uneasy. I think this might not be the best time. Harrison began calmly. Travis cut him off immediately. Yeah, I don't remember asking you anything. The air shifted, not louder, but tighter. Jade closed her eyes briefly, not because of the pain this time, but because she saw exactly where this was going. Travis, please, she said, her voice softer now, but firm. This isn't about you right now. That sentence landed like a direct hit. Not about you. Travis froze again, because once upon a time, everything about Jade had involved him, and now, he was being told he didn't even belong in the moment. His eyes dropped again, back to the monitor. 3 steady rhythms, still beating, still real, still unanswered. 3, he said quietly, almost to himself. Jade, why are there 3 heartbeats? Silence, not from the machines, not from the staff, from her. Jade didn't respond right away. Instead, she held onto Harrison's hand tighter as another contraction surged through her. Her breathing picked up. The doctor stepped in again. All right, Jade, stay with me. We're getting close. But Travis didn't move, didn't step back, didn't look away, because now he needed to know. His mind started connecting things he hadn't wanted to think about before. The rumors, the calls he ignored, the one conversation where she said, "I'm okay, Travis. I really am." At the time, he thought she was just trying to prove something. Now, that sentence sounded different. "You moved on," he said slowly, his voice heavy with realization. Jade opened her eyes again. This time, there was no avoiding it. Yes, one word. Clear, direct, final. Travis swallowed. Hard. "But 3? He asked again, struggling to keep his voice steady. "You're telling me you just started a whole new life like that?" Before Jade could respond, Harrison spoke. Still calm, still grounded. "They're ours." No hesitation, no apology, no need to explain further. That was it. That was the moment everything inside Travis shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. Because hearing it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had yet. Jade saw it in his face. That crack, that moment where anger didn't lead anymore, where something else started taking its place. "Travis," she said gently, even through the pressure building again. "This didn't happen overnight." He let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "But there was nothing funny in it." "Feels like it did," he replied. Another contraction hit harder this time. Jade cried out, gripping Harrison's arm. He stayed steady, right there, unshaken. "Look at me," Harrison said softly. "You're almost there." And again, that should have been Travis, that voice, that role, that place. But it wasn't. And for the first time since he walked in, Travis stopped fighting that reality. He just stood there, watching, processing, feeling everything he had pushed aside for too long. The room tightened again as the doctor's voice cut through. "All right, everyone ready. We're moving into delivery." The energy shifted instantly, focused, urgent, final. Travis took a small step back this time, not because someone told him to, but because he finally understood. He wasn't at the center of this anymore. Still, his eyes never left Jade, or the monitor, or the life unfolding in front of him, because something inside him was starting to break open. Not anger, not jealousy. Something deeper, something harder to face, and it was only just beginning. "All right, Jade, this is it. Stay with me now." The doctor's voice came through clear, firm, and steady. Everything in the room shifted. No more space for tension. No more room for unfinished conversations. This moment demanded focus, and Jade gave it everything she had. Her body tensed again as another contraction hit harder than the last. She cried out, her voice raw, filled with effort and pain that couldn't be softened. Harrison tightened his grip on her hand instantly. "I'm right here," he said, leaning closer. "You're doing amazing. Just push when they tell you." His tone didn't shake, didn't break. It held her together. Travis stood just a few feet away, close enough to hear every word, far enough to realize none of them were meant for him anymore. "Push, Jade." The doctor called. She did. Every muscle, every breath, every ounce of strength. She pushed through it. Her face tightened, her voice breaking into a cry that filled the room. And still, Harrison didn't move, didn't step back, didn't hesitate. Travis felt something twist inside him, because this wasn't just about what he was seeing. It was about what he had lost, what he walked away from, what he didn't fight for when it mattered most. Good, again, the doctor urged. Jade gasped, pulling in air as her body prepared for another wave. Her fingers clutched Harrison tighter, and without thinking, she leaned toward him, toward the man who had been there. Every step, every moment, Travis looked down. His hands were empty, and for the first time, that emptiness felt heavy. His mind started replaying things he had buried. The arguments, the frustration, the words he couldn't take back. "You're messing everything up. I'm not ready for this. This wasn't the plan." At the time, he thought he was being honest. Now, it sounded like something else entirely. "Jade." One more strong push. The doctor called out. She screamed, loud, powerful, unfiltered. And then, a sound cut through everything. A cry, sharp, new, alive. "There we go. First baby is out." The room filled with movement again. A nurse quickly stepped in, wrapping the newborn. The sound of that cry echoed in Travis's chest in a way he couldn't explain. He stared, eyes locked, because in that moment, nothing else mattered. A baby. Her baby. No, not his. His throat tightened, and before he could even process that thought, the doctor spoke again. "All right, Jade, don't stop now. We've got 2 more. 2 more. Those words didn't just land. They shook him, because this wasn't something he could slowly understand anymore. It was happening fast, real, right in front of him. Jade barely had time to recover. Another contraction surged. Her body responded instantly. "Stay with me," Harrison whispered again. "You've got this." She nodded weakly, but she didn't let go. Travis ran a hand over his face, trying to ground himself, trying to catch up, but everything was moving too fast. Second push. Another cry. Another life. Second baby is out. Another rush of motion. Another newborn cry filling the space. Stronger now, louder, layered. Travis stepped back again, just slightly, as if his body was finally reacting to what his mind couldn't fully hold. 2 babies, 2 lives, and still, there was one more. "Jade, last one," the doctor said firmly. "Give me everything you've got." She shook her head slightly, exhausted. I can't." "Yes, you can," Harrison said immediately, his voice steady but stronger now. "You've come this far. I'm right here." And she believed him, not because he said it loud, but because he had been there long enough to mean it. Travis watched that exchange, and something inside him finally cracked, not loudly, not visibly, but completely, because in that moment, he understood something he had been avoiding this entire time. Love wasn't just about being there at the beginning. It was about staying, through fear, through change, through everything he ran from. "Push, Jade," she screamed one last time, and then the third cry filled the room. "Third baby is out." 3 voices, 3 lives, 3 realities Travis could no longer deny. The room moved quickly now. Nurses coordinating, doctors giving instructions, 3 newborns being cared for at once, but Travis didn't move, didn't speak, didn't react the way he thought he would, because everything inside him had gone quiet. His eyes stayed fixed on Jade, exhausted, relieved, and somehow at peace. Harrison leaned closer to her, his forehead gently touching hers. "You did it," he whispered, and she smiled. Not big, not dramatic, just real. Travis looked at the 3 newborns again, then back at Jade, then at Harrison, and for the first time, he didn't see himself in that picture at all. A nurse walked past him, then paused briefly. She looked at Travis, then back at the babies, then said something that didn't sound heavy, but hit harder than anything else that night. "You're about to become a father, again." She hesitated just slightly, then finished. "But not the way you think." And that was it. The moment everything finally settled into place. Not the way you think, because whatever story Travis had told himself before walking into that room was gone now, replaced by something real, something irreversible, something he couldn't change. And the truth, he wasn't ready for it. Travis didn't realize he had stopped breathing until the sound of those newborn cries faded into the background. Not gone, just distant, like his mind had stepped away from the room. Even though his body was still standing there, his eyes remained on Jade, but what he was seeing was no longer just the present, because memories don't ask for permission. They show up when something hits too deep, and right now, everything had hit at once. Atlanta, years ago, before the silence, before the distance, before he became a man standing on the outside of her life. It was loud, music spilling into the streets, laughter moving through crowds. Food trucks lined up with people talking, dancing, living without thinking too far ahead. That's where it started. Not planned, not forced, just one of those moments that didn't feel important at first, until it became everything. Jade stood near a booth, holding a drink she barely touched, laughing at something her friend had said. Her laugh wasn't quiet. It carried, not for attention, just real. And that's what caught him. Travis wasn't looking for anyone that day. He had plans, a schedule, a direction, but something about her made all of that pause. "She looks like she doesn't care who's watching," his friend said, nudging him slightly. Travis didn't respond, because he was already moving. "Hey," he said casually as he approached. Jade turned, raising an eyebrow slightly. "Hey, do I know you?" He smirked. "Not yet." She stared at him for a second, then shook her head with a small smile. "That was bold. I'll give you that." That was it. No dramatic moment, no perfect setup, just two people meeting at the right time, before life complicated everything. They talked longer than either of them expected, about music, about Atlanta, about the kind of life they thought they wanted. Jade spoke with ease. Travis listened more than he usually did. And somewhere in that conversation, something clicked. It wasn't rushed, but it wasn't slow either. They fell into each other naturally. Phone calls turned into late-night conversations. Quick meetups turned into full days spent together. And Jade? She brought something into Travis's life that he didn't realize he was missing. Not excitement, not distraction, balance. "You think too far ahead," she told him once, sitting across from him at a small restaurant. "And you don't think far enough," he replied. She laughed. "Maybe that's why this works." And it did. For a while, it worked perfectly. Their relationship didn't feel complicated. It felt easy, not because life was simple, but because they chose each other without hesitation. When Travis proposed, it wasn't flashy. No crowd, no grand setup, just a quiet moment. "Real. I don't want to imagine my future without you in it," he said. Jade looked at him, studied him for a second, then smiled. "You won't have to." That was the beginning, the part people don't question, the part that always feels right. They built something together, a home, a rhythm, a shared life that felt stable, and Travis believed that once you built something like that, it stayed. But life doesn't move based on what you believe, it moves based on what you're ready for, and neither of them knew. What was coming next would test everything they thought they understood about love. Before we go further, if you've ever had a relationship that started so right, it felt like nothing could break it, go ahead and like this video, and in the comments, tell me the moment you realized something you believed in wasn't as strong as you thought. Because what Jade and Travis are about to face is something a lot of people don't see coming until it's already too late. The memory didn't jump. It moved forward, naturally, like time does when you don't realize the moment you're in will later define everything. It started with something small, quiet, almost ordinary. Jade stood in the bathroom, staring at the test in her hand. Her heart was beating fast, but not out of fear, out of anticipation, out of something she hadn't felt before, a kind of excitement that didn't need words. She walked out slowly. Travis was in the living room, focused on his laptop, numbers filling his screen, his attention locked in the way it always was when he worked. "Travis." He didn't look up immediately. "Yeah, give me a second. I'm pregnant." That got his attention. Instantly, his head lifted, eyes locked on her. For a moment, he didn't speak, didn't react, just processed. "Wait, what?" he asked, sitting up straighter now. Jade held up the test. "It's positive." Silence filled the space between them. Not heavy, not tense, just unexpected. Then, a smile broke across his face. Real, unfiltered. "You're serious?" Jade nodded, a small laugh slipping out. "I wouldn't joke about this." He stood up quickly, walking toward her, and just like that, he pulled her into a hug, tight, warm, certain. "We're having a baby," he said, almost like he was trying to hear himself say it. Jade closed her eyes, holding on to him. "Yeah, we are." That moment, it was real. It mattered, because for that brief space in time, everything felt right. But reality doesn't stay still. It moves, and sometimes it moves faster than people are ready for. At first, Travis leaned into it. He talked about plans, about preparing, about doing things the right way. "We need to start thinking ahead," he said one evening, pacing slightly as he spoke. "Doctor visits, finances, space. We can't just wing this. Jade sat on the couch, watching him. You're already stressing, she said gently. I'm not stressing, he replied quickly. I'm being responsible. That was the first shift. Subtle, but there. Days turned into weeks. And slowly, that excitement started changing shape. Travis became quieter, more focused, less present. He stayed longer at work, spent more time thinking, calculating, planning, but not talking. Jade noticed. Of course she did. Hey, she said one night, sitting beside him. You've been distant lately. I've just got a lot on my mind, he replied without looking up. Like what? He paused, then sighed. Everything. That word hung there. Everything. Travis. This is a good thing, Jade said softly. We wanted this. I know, he said quickly. Too quickly. She studied him, because something in his tone didn't match his words. You don't sound like you know, she said. That got his attention. He looked at her now. Why are you making this into something it's not? I'm not making it anything, she replied calmly. I'm just asking why you feel different. I don't feel different. You do. That was how it started. Not yelling, not explosive, just tension, quiet, growing. Travis leaned back, running a hand over his face. I just didn't expect it to happen this fast, he admitted. Jade blinked slightly. What does that mean? It means... He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I had a plan, Jade. Things I wanted to do first. She nodded slowly. And I wasn't part of that plan? That's not what I said, but that's what it sounds like. There it was, the first real crack. I'm trying to adjust, Travis said, his voice tightening slightly. You think this is easy for me? Jade frowned. I didn't say it was easy, but you're acting like this is happening to you, not for us. He didn't respond, because, deep down, he didn't have an answer for that. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with everything neither of them wanted to say out loud. And once silence starts replacing communication, things begin to change. Jade tried to hold on to the version of him she knew, the one who laughed easily, the one who didn't overthink everything, the one who chose her without hesitation. But slowly, that version of Travis became harder to reach. Even small things turned into something else. A missed call, a short reply, a sigh at the wrong moment. One evening, Jade dropped a glass in the kitchen. It shattered on the floor. Travis walked in, already tense. Seriously? You've got to be more careful. Jade looked up at him. It was an accident. I know, but still what? She cut in, her voice sharper now. It's a glass, Travis. He shook his head, frustrated. It's not just the glass. Then what is it? He didn't answer, because, the truth, he didn't fully understand it himself. Pressure, expectation, fear, all sitting underneath everything he said. And instead of expressing it, it started coming out as something else. Jade leaned against the counter, watching him. You're not talking to me anymore, she said quietly. I'm right here. No, you're not. That landed, but instead of opening him up, it pushed him further in. And that's how it happens. Not all at once, not in one moment, but in small shifts that build over time, until one day, you look at the person you love and realize something between you has changed, and you don't know how to fix it. But someone else had already seen this before, Tanya. You better pay attention now, she told Jade one afternoon, watching her closely, because when pressure hits a man who ain't ready, it shows up in ways you don't expect. Jade frowned. You think that's what this is? Tanya gave a knowing look. I've seen it before. Trust me. Jade didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she felt it, because Travis wasn't just changing, he was pulling away, and neither of them knew yet how far that distance would go. By the time it finally broke, it didn't feel sudden. It felt overdue. The tension had been building quietly for weeks, unspoken words stacking up, small arguments never fully resolved, distance growing in ways neither of them knew how to measure, but both of them could feel. That night started like any other, too normal to be a warning. Jade was in the living room, folding baby clothes she had just bought earlier that day. Soft colors, small sizes, hope in physical form. Travis walked in, loosening his tie, his expression already tired. He glanced at the clothes, didn't smile, didn't comment, just looked. "You got more?" he asked. Jade paused slightly. "Yeah, I saw them earlier and thought they were cute." He nodded once, then walked past her. That was it. But something about that moment sat wrong. "You don't like them?" Jade asked, her tone calm but searching. "It's not about liking them," Travis replied, dropping his keys on the table. "It's just, we need to slow down a little." Jade frowned. "Slow down? I'm preparing." "We don't need everything all at once," he said, his voice tightening. "We need to think." "I am thinking," she replied. "That's what this is." He turned to face her now, and there it was again, that tension, clear, visible. "You're acting like this is all just simple," he said. "And you're acting like it's a problem," Jade shot back. "It is a problem." Travis snapped, the words coming out faster than he could stop them. The room went still. Jade blinked, once, slow. "What did you just say?" He exhaled sharply, pacing a step before turning back. "I didn't mean it like that." "No," she said quietly. "Say it again. Exactly how you meant it." He hesitated, and in that hesitation, everything became clear. I wasn't ready for this," he admitted, his voice no longer controlled. Jade's grip tightened on the small piece of clothing in her hands. "Not ready for our child?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he said, frustration rising again. "I had plans, Jade, things I needed to do first." Her eyes locked onto his, sharp, unmoving. "And where was I in those plans?" "That's not what this is about." "It is exactly what this is about." The air shifted, not loud, but heavy. "Everything was fine before this," Travis continued, his voice rising now. "We had structure, we had direction. Now everything is just equal to, just what?" Jade cut in. He stopped, and for a split second, he could have chosen differently, but he didn't. "Now everything is messed up," he said. The words hit hard. Jade stared at him, not reacting right away, just absorbing it. And then, he said the one thing he could never take back. "You ruined everything." Silence. Complete. Even Travis seemed to realize it the moment it left his mouth. His expression shifted, just slightly, but it was too late. Jade didn't yell, didn't cry immediately, didn't argue. She just looked at him, and something inside her closed. "You really feel that way?" she asked, her voice steady, but distant. Travis ran a hand through his hair, frustrated, overwhelmed. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you said it," she replied. That was the difference, not what he tried to fix, but what he revealed. Jade placed the baby clothes down slowly, carefully, like she was putting down something fragile. "Do you even hear yourself?" she asked. "I'm just being honest." "No," she said, shaking her head slightly. "You're being hurtful." "I'm being real," he insisted. "And your reality doesn't include me anymore," she replied. That landed, deeper than anything else, because for the first time, she wasn't asking him to change. She was recognizing that he already had. The silence that followed wasn't filled with tension anymore. It was filled with clarity. Jade turned, walked toward the bedroom. Travis watched her, still breathing hard, still caught in his own frustration. "You're just going to walk away?" he called out. She stopped at the doorway, didn't turn around immediately. Then finally, she spoke. "I'm not walking away," she said quietly. "I'm choosing myself." That was the moment everything ended. She grabbed a small bag, moved with purpose, no hesitation, no second guessing. Travis stood there, not stopping her, not apologizing, not fixing anything, because pride was louder than understanding. By the time it faded, she was already gone. The door closed behind her, soft, but final, and just like that, everything he thought was secure was gone. Jade stepped out into the night, alone, pregnant, but not broken, because even in that moment, she knew one thing for certain. She deserved better than being blamed for something that was meant to be shared. And Travis? He stayed inside, in the silence he created, not realizing that one moment would follow him all the way, back to that hospital room, where he now stood, watching the life he walked away from continue without him. And this time, there was no fixing it. The night Jade walked out, she didn't look back, not because it didn't hurt, but because she already knew. Looking back would only make it harder to keep going. The air outside felt different, not lighter, not easier, just honest. She held her bag tighter as she stepped forward. Every step wasn't confidence, it was decision. And sometimes, that's stronger. By the time she reached Monica's place, the exhaustion had already settled into her body, not just physical, emotional. Monica opened the door before Jade even knocked twice. She took one look at her face and didn't ask a single question. "Come here," Monica said, pulling her into a hug. That was it. That was all Jade needed in that moment. Not advice, not solutions, just someone who didn't make her explain her pain. "I left," Jade said quietly after a few seconds. Monica nodded against her shoulder. "I figured." They pulled apart slowly. Monica stepped aside. "Come in. You're not standing out here with all that on your shoulders." Inside felt warm, familiar, safe. Jade sat down, finally letting the weight of everything settle, and for the first time since that night, she allowed herself to feel it. Fully. "I didn't think it would end like that," she admitted. Monica leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "It never does." Jade let out a breath. "He said I ruined everything." Monica didn't react immediately. She just watched her, carefully. "And what do you think?" Monica asked. Jade paused, because for the first time, she wasn't answering for Travis. She was answering for herself. "I think," she said slowly, "he wasn't ready." Monica nodded. "That's his problem, not yours." That sentence stayed with Jade, because it shifted something. For the first time, she stopped carrying his reaction as her responsibility. Days turned into weeks. Jade didn't rush healing. She moved through it, step by step. Mornings started at the salon, not because she had to, but because being there helped. Monica's salon wasn't just about hair. It was conversation. It was laughter. It was women sharing stories without judgment. "You glowing, Jade," one of the regulars said one morning. Jade smiled faintly, trying to. "You ain't trying," another voice chimed in. "You doing." Little moments like that, they mattered more than people realize, because healing doesn't always come from big changes. Sometimes it comes from small reminders that you're still seen, still supported, still standing. Jade started finding herself again, not the version she was before Travis, but a stronger version of who she was becoming. And somewhere in that process, life introduced something unexpected. It was a regular afternoon, voices overlapping, dryers humming. The door opened. A man stepped in, clean-cut, well-dressed, but not out of place. He looked around briefly, then smiled. "Hey, is Monica here?" Jade glanced up from where she was sitting. Their eyes met, just for a second. Not intense, not dramatic, just noticed. "She's in the back," Jade said. "Appreciated," he replied. His tone was easy, natural, no pressure. Jade went back to what she was doing, but something about that interaction stayed. A few minutes later, Monica walked out with him, laughing. "Jade," Monica called. "This is Harrison. He's here for his sister's appointment." Harrison looked over again, this time with a clearer smile. Hey, Jade replied. Monica looked between them briefly, then smirked slightly, but said nothing. The introduction was simple, no build-up, no expectation, but what mattered was what came after, because Harrison didn't come in trying to impress anyone. He sat, talked, listened. At one point, Jade found herself part of the conversation, not pulled in, not forced, just included. "You from Atlanta?" Harrison asked. "Yeah," she replied. "Born and raised." He nodded. "You can tell." She raised an eyebrow slightly. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled. You move like you know where you belong. That caught her off guard, not because it was smooth, but because it was accurate. And for the first time in a while, Jade didn't feel like she had to explain herself. The conversation didn't last long, didn't need to, because it wasn't about how much was said. It was about how it felt, and it felt easy, not forced, not complicated, not heavy, just right. As Harrison stood to leave, he looked back briefly. Good meeting you, Jade. Same, she replied, and that was it. No promises, no expectations, but something had shifted. Quietly, naturally, because sometimes a second chance doesn't announce itself. It just shows up. When you're finally ready to receive it. Jade didn't expect to see Harrison again so soon, but life has a way of bringing people back into your space. When there's something worth continuing. A few days later, he walked into the salon again. Not for his sister this time, just because. Monica noticed immediately. Of course she did. She glanced at Jade, then back at Harrison, a quiet smile forming, but she stayed out of it. Back already? Monica said casually. Harrison shrugged lightly. Figured I might have left something. You sure it wasn't a conversation? Monica replied, raising an eyebrow. Jade shook her head slightly, trying not to smile. Harrison looked over at her. Maybe both. That was how it started. No pressure, no expectations, just showing up. The next time they talked, it lasted longer, and the time after that, even longer. It didn't feel like effort. It felt like curiosity. So what do you do when you're not here? Harrison asked one evening, as the salon quieted down. Teach, Jade replied. Elementary school. He nodded. That explains a lot. She crossed her arms lightly. What does that mean? You've got patience, he said. Not everybody does. Jade laughed softly. You'd be surprised. And you? She asked. You always this observant? Only when it matters, he replied. There it was again, not overly smooth, not rehearsed, just present. Their conversation started stretching beyond the salon. First, it was quick stops outside, then short walks, then one evening. He asked, You like jazz? Jade looked at him for a second. Depends who's playing. He smiled. Come find out. That night changed something. The music wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It filled the room in a way that made conversations softer, more intentional. Jade sat across from him, relaxed in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. This is nice, she admitted. Harrison nodded. Yeah, it is. No rush, no trying to impress. Just two people sharing space without forcing anything. That's what made it different. Because with Travis, everything had started fast, strong, certain, but with Harrison, it built, layer by layer, moment by moment, and that made it feel steady. Their nights didn't become dramatic. They became consistent. Late conversations, simple dinners, moments where silence didn't feel awkward. One night, they sat outside the salon after closing. No music, no distractions, just conversation stretching into something deeper. You don't talk about him much, Harrison said carefully. Jade didn't react immediately, but she didn't shut down either. There's not much to say anymore, she replied. That's fair, he said. No pressure, no follow-up. That mattered, because he didn't try to pull information out of her. He let her give it. When she was ready. You ever feel like things end before you understand why? She asked after a moment. Harrison leaned back slightly, thinking. Yeah, he said, but I've learned something. What's that? Not everything ends because it's supposed to last, he replied. Sometimes it ends because it's supposed to teach. Jade looked at him, really looked, because that wasn't advice. That was perspective. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to defend her past. She could just exist in the present. That's how Harrison earned her trust, not through big gestures, but through consistency. He showed up. He listened. He didn't rush her healing. And most importantly, he never made her feel like she had to prove her worth. That changed everything. Because when someone has been made to feel like they're too much, finding someone who sees them as enough is powerful. Jade started smiling more, laughing without holding back, letting her guard down in ways she hadn't allowed herself to before. And Harrison noticed, but he didn't point it out. He just appreciated it. Because he understood something Travis didn't at the time. You don't force connection, you build it. And, slowly, that connection turned into something real. Before we go further, if you've ever experienced the difference between a love that rushed you and a love that allowed you to grow at your own pace, go ahead and like this video and tell me in the comments which one felt more real to you. Because what Jade is building now isn't just a relationship, it's a second chance at being understood. And sometimes, that's all a person ever needed. By the time Jade realized something felt different, she didn't panic, not this time. She noticed it early, small changes, subtle signals her body gave her. But unlike before, she didn't carry it alone. "Harrison," she said one morning, standing in the kitchen, her voice calm but thoughtful, "I think we need to check something." He looked up immediately. Concern didn't take over his face. Attention did. "What's going on?" he asked. "I don't know yet," she replied, "but I feel off." He didn't question it, didn't dismiss it. "Then we go find out," he said simply. That was the difference. No hesitation, no frustration, just action. At the doctor's office, Jade sat quietly, her hands resting gently over her stomach. Harrison sat beside her, not distracted, not distant, present. "You good?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I am," and she meant it, because even in uncertainty, she didn't feel alone. The doctor walked in, greeting them briefly before getting straight to the check. Routine, professional. But then, something shifted. The doctor paused, looked at the screen, then adjusted slightly. Jade noticed. Harrison did too. "What is it?" Jade asked. The doctor smiled slowly, not surprised, but aware of what this moment meant. "Well," the doctor said, turning the monitor slightly toward them, "this is a little more exciting than expected." Jade leaned forward. Harrison followed. And then, they saw it. Not one, not two, three. 3 small forms, 3 steady rhythms, 3 lives. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jade blinked, then blinked again. "Wait," she said softly. "Are those?" The doctor nodded. Triplets. Silence. Not empty. Full, because some moments don't need immediate reactions. They need space. Jade let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Then, she laughed. Soft at first, then real. 3? She said, shaking her head slightly. "You're serious?" Harrison stared at the screen, still processing. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's a lot." Jade laughed again. "Yeah, that's one way to put it." But neither of them pulled back. Neither of them looked afraid, because what mattered most in that moment wasn't the number. It was the fact that they were facing it together. "Well," Harrison said after a moment, glancing at her, "guess we're not doing anything halfway." Jade smiled at him. "No, I guess we're not." From that point on, everything changed, not in a way that created distance, in a way that demanded more, and Harrison stepped into it, fully. Doctor appointments became shared moments. Decisions became conversations. Preparation became teamwork. "You sure you ready for this?" Jade asked him one evening, half joking as they sat surrounded by baby items. Harrison looked around, then back at her. "I don't think anyone's ever fully ready," he said, "but I'm here. That's what matters." She studied him for a second, because she knew what not being ready looked like. She had lived it before. "And this was different. You don't feel overwhelmed?" she asked. He smiled slightly. "I do," he admitted, "but I'm not running from it." That answer settled something deep inside her, because it wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. As the months passed, they started talking about names. "Okay," Jade said one afternoon, holding a notebook. "We need names that feel right." Harrison leaned back, thinking. "Strong names," he said. "Names that mean something." Jade nodded. "Kingston," she said. Harrison smiled immediately. "I like that." "Emery," she added. He nodded again. Yeah, that fits. And faith, Jade finished softly. That one sat differently. Not heavier, just deeper. Harrison looked at her. Faith, he repeated. That's perfect, because it wasn't just a name. It was a reflection of everything that brought them to this moment. 3 names, 3 lives, 3 new beginnings. But while Jade was building something new, someone else was still tied to the past. Travis. The first time he heard about it, he didn't believe it. Triplets, he said over the phone, his tone sharp with disbelief. You serious? The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. Yeah, that's what I heard. He went quiet, because this wasn't just news. This was reality catching up to him. Jade hadn't just moved on. She had built something bigger, something fuller, something he wasn't part of. He tried to brush it off, tried to act like it didn't matter. But later that night, sitting alone, it came back. Not anger, not yet. Something else. A question he couldn't ignore anymore. What if I handled things differently? That thought stayed, lingered, grew, because for the first time, Travis wasn't just remembering Jade. He was realizing he had lost her, and this time, there was no way to undo it. Travis didn't go looking for silence, but somehow, that's all his life became. At first, it didn't bother him. After Jade left, he filled his time the way he always had. Work, meetings, late nights that stretched longer than necessary. It gave him structure, control, something to focus on that didn't ask him questions he didn't want to answer. And, for a while, that worked until the quiet moments started getting louder. It happened in small ways. Coming home to a space that stayed exactly how he left it. No voice, no laughter, no presence that made the room feel alive at first. He told himself it was peace. But peace doesn't feel empty. This did. So he tried to fix it, not by looking inward, but by replacing what was missing. He started going out more, meeting new people, accepting invitations he normally would have ignored, and eventually, dating. The first few times felt easy. Conversations stayed surface level, nothing too deep, nothing too real, and that was exactly what he thought he needed. But surface doesn't hold. It fades quickly. One night, he sat across from a woman at dinner. She was talking, smiling, engaged, and Travis, he was listening, but not really hearing her, because something felt off, not wrong, just incomplete. You're quiet, she said, tilting her head slightly. I'm listening, he replied. She smiled. You're thinking about something else. He paused, because she wasn't wrong. I've just got a lot going on, he said. That answer used to work, but this time, it didn't feel honest, because what he had going on wasn't work, it was memory. And no matter how many new conversations he stepped into, they all ended the same way, disconnected. He stopped trying after a while, not because he couldn't meet someone, but because every comparison led back to Jade, not intentionally, not something he chose, just something that kept happening. The way she laughed without holding back, the way she challenged him when he got too rigid, the way she didn't let him hide behind logic when emotion mattered more. Those things didn't show up anywhere else. And that's when it started shifting from absence to awareness, because now he wasn't just missing her, he was understanding her, and that realization didn't feel good. It felt heavy because it came with something else, responsibility. He sat alone one night, staring at his phone, scrolling through nothing, stopping on nothing. Then he found it. A picture. Jade, smiling, unfiltered, alive in a way that filled the frame without trying. He stared at it longer than he expected, and for the first time, he didn't focus on what she did wrong. He focused on what he missed, and that's when the truth finally settled in. He didn't lose her in one moment. He lost her over time, through distance, through pressure, through words he thought were justified, but were never necessary. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. I could have handled that better, he muttered to himself. Not loud, not dramatic, just honest. And honesty came late, because now there was nothing to fix, only something to face. And facing it meant accepting something he had avoided for too long. Jade didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because he stopped showing up the way she needed. That difference mattered, because it meant it wasn't fate, it was choice, his choice. And that realization didn't stay quiet. It grew every time he heard her name, every time someone mentioned she was doing well, every time he caught himself wondering what her life looked like now. And then he heard about Harrison. At first it didn't hit, just information, nothing more. But when the details started forming, that's when it changed. A man who showed up, a man who stayed present, a man who stepped into everything Travis stepped away from. That comparison didn't feel fair, but it was real, and Travis couldn't ignore it anymore. Because now, it wasn't just about losing Jade, it was about seeing someone else become what he failed to be. And that's where regret truly begins. Not when something ends, but when you finally understand what you should have done differently, and there was no way around it now. Travis understood, too late, but clearly, and that clarity was only going to push him toward one decision, whether he was ready for it or not. Jade didn't think about Travis every day, not anymore. Her life had moved forward, not perfectly, not without challenges, but forward. Between preparing for the babies, balancing her energy, and leaning into the life she was building with Harrison, there wasn't much room left for the past. But some things don't disappear just because you stop focusing on them. They wait, quietly, and sometimes they come back when everything else finally feels stable. It started one evening, simple, calm. Jade sat on the couch, one hand resting gently over her stomach, feeling the subtle movements that had become familiar to her now. 3 rhythms, 3 reminders, 3 reasons to stay grounded. Harrison was nearby, flipping through something on his tablet, relaxed but attentive in the way he always was. "You okay?" he asked without looking up. Jade nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." He glanced over, didn't push, just waited, because he knew if it mattered, she would say it. And after a moment, she did. "I've been thinking about Travis." The room didn't change. No tension, no discomfort, just honesty. Harrison set the tablet down, not reacting, just present. "What about him?" he asked calmly. Jade exhaled slowly, not overwhelmed, just reflective. "I never really closed that chapter," she said. That was the truth. Not love, not longing, just something unfinished. Because leaving wasn't the same as ending. And somewhere deep down, she knew that. "It's not about going back," she continued, her voice steady. "I don't want that." Harrison nodded once. "I know. I just..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I don't like that the last thing between us was anger." That mattered to her, not because she needed him, but because she didn't want to carry that version of their ending forever. Harrison leaned back slightly, thinking. "You feel like you need to talk to him," he said. Jade nodded. "Yes." Not hesitation, not uncertainty. Clarity. "And you're sure it's not going to open something you've already moved past?" he asked. She shook her head gently. "No. That part is done." And she meant it, because what she had with Harrison was real, and she wasn't questioning that. She was just closing something that never fully ended. Harrison studied her for a moment, not judging, not doubting, just understanding. "Then do it," he said. Jade blinked slightly. "You're okay with that?" He gave a small nod. "I trust you," he replied. That's simple. No conditions, no hesitation, just trust. And that confirmed everything she already felt. Because trust isn't something you explain. It's something you show. Jade reached for her phone, then paused, because even when you know something is right, it doesn't always feel easy. "What would I even say?" she asked quietly. Harrison shrugged lightly. "The truth." She let out a small breath. "The truth. Not blame, not defense, just honesty." Jade looked down at the phone again. Her thumb hovered over the screen. This wasn't about reopening anything. It was about releasing it. Finally, she found his number, still there, untouched. For a moment, she just stared at it, because once she pressed that button, there was no going back to silence. But silence had already done enough. It had held too much for too long, so she pressed call. The phone rang, once, twice, each second stretching just enough to remind her this mattered. Then it connected. Hello? His voice, familiar, but different. Jade closed her eyes briefly, grounding herself. Travis. Silence on the other end. Then, Jade? Not angry, not cold, just surprised. Yeah, she said softly. It's me. Another pause, because neither of them expected this moment. Not like this. I wasn't expecting your call, he admitted. I know, she replied. I needed to talk to you. His tone shifted slightly, more serious now. About what? Jade took a breath. About us, she said. The word hung there, not heavy, but important, because this wasn't about going backward. It was about finally finishing something that had been left open. I don't want to argue, she added quickly. That's not why I called. Travis didn't respond immediately, because he could hear it. This wasn't the same Jade he argued with before. This was someone who had already moved forward. What do you want, Jade? He asked. Honest, direct. She didn't hesitate. I want closure. That word settled into the space between them, and for the first time, they were both standing in the same place, not together, but aligned in truth. I think we should talk in person, she continued. Just once. No expectations. Just clarity. Travis exhaled slowly, because everything he had been thinking, everything he had been carrying, was now standing right in front of him, in the form of a single opportunity, and whether he realized it or not, this moment was about to lead him right back to where everything would change. Again, Travis didn't answer her immediately, not because he didn't hear her, but because he felt exactly what that moment carried. Closure. That word sat heavier than anything else she had said, because closure meant one thing: there was nothing left to fix, and for someone like Travis, that wasn't easy to accept. When? He finally asked. Jade shifted slightly, adjusting her position. Soon, she said. I'm close to my due date. There was a pause on the line. Travis frowned slightly. Due date? He repeated. Yeah, Jade replied calmly. Another silence followed, because even though he had heard about it before, hearing it directly from her made it real again. All right, he said after a moment. Where? Jade didn't hesitate. The hospital, she said. That answer caught him off guard. The hospital? He repeated, his tone sharpening slightly. Yes, she said. I want you there. Now that changed everything. Jade, I thought this was just a conversation, he said, his voice tightening. Why would I need to be at the hospital? Because that's where I'll be, she replied. Simple, direct, but not fully explained. And that lack of explanation started something inside him. You're not making sense, Travis said. I will when you get here, she answered. That was it. No long explanation, no detailed reasoning, just an invitation, wrapped in uncertainty. And for Travis, uncertainty never sat well. Jade. He started, trying to get clarity, but she cut in gently. Please, she said, just come. Her tone wasn't emotional. It wasn't desperate. It was steady, and that steadiness made it harder to question. All right, he said finally. The word left his mouth before he fully processed what he was agreeing to. Okay, Jade replied softly. I'll see you. And just like that, the call ended. Travis lowered the phone slowly. The room around him felt different now. Not quiet, not empty, charged, because now he wasn't just thinking anymore. He was moving towards something, but his mind didn't settle. It started building. Questions first. Why the hospital? Why now? Why didn't she explain anything? Then assumptions. Was something wrong? Was she trying to prove something? Was this about him? Or something else entirely? And then, the one thought that took over everything else. I'm not walking into this blind. That thought didn't calm him. It fueled him. Because instead of approaching the situation with clarity, he approached it with control. I need to know what I'm walking into, he muttered to himself. But there was no one there to answer him, so his mind filled in the gaps. And when the mind doesn't have facts, it creates its own version of truth. By the time he grabbed his keys, that version had already formed. He wasn't going there to listen. He was going there to confront, because in his mind, something didn't add up, and he was going to fix that. "I'm taking back control of this," he said under his breath. That belief felt solid, even though it was built on assumptions. He stepped outside. The air hit him differently now, sharper. Every step toward his car felt intentional, not rushed, not hesitant, focused, because he had already decided whatever was waiting for him at that hospital, he wasn't going to be caught off guard. He got into the car, started the engine. His grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel, and as he pulled out, his thoughts became louder. She should have told me everything. Why call me now? What is she trying to do? Each question fed into the next, each thought pushing him further away from calm and closer to something else, something sharper. Because instead of preparing himself to understand, he prepared himself to react. By the time he reached the hospital, his mindset was already locked in. He stepped out of the car, looked up at the building, and whatever hesitation could have existed was gone. Because now, he wasn't walking in as someone looking for closure. He was walking in as someone ready to challenge whatever stood in front of him. And that energy carried through every step he took, through the doors, down the hallway, toward the moment that had already begun without him. And just like that, we're back, right where everything started. The hospital doors, the urgency, the anger, the moment Travis walked in, thinking he still had control, only to realize he had already lost it. The moment didn't restart, it continued. Travis stood exactly where he had stopped, in that same room, with the same three cries still echoing around him. Nothing about this felt like something he could step into. It felt like something he had already missed. The doctors moved with precision. Nurses worked quickly, each one focused on a different task. 3 newborns, 3 separate lives needing attention all at once. Jade lay back, her breathing uneven, her body finally coming down from the intensity of everything she had just pushed through. Her strength wasn't loud, it was quiet, steady. Harrison stayed beside her, still holding her hand, still present in a way that hadn't changed from the moment Travis walked in. "You did it," he said softly. Jade let out a small breath, a tired smile forming. "We did it," she replied. That word mattered, because it didn't just acknowledge the moment. It acknowledged the journey. Travis heard it, and something inside him shifted again, not sharply, not painfully, but clearly, because that we didn't include him, and for the first time, he didn't resist that. A nurse walked past him, carrying one of the babies carefully wrapped. Another followed, then the third. 3 separate cries, each one distinct, each one real. Travis watched them, not trying to understand anymore, just seeing, because reality didn't need explanation at this point. It was already in front of him. "Do you want to hold them?" A nurse asked Harrison. Harrison nodded slightly, glancing at Jade first. She gave a small, tired nod. He reached out carefully, receiving one of the babies. His movements weren't perfect, but they were intentional. He looked down, and for a moment, everything else in the room faded for him. "Hey," he said quietly, almost to himself. Jade watched him, that same small smile still there, because this moment was exactly what she had hoped for. Not perfection. Presence. Travis shifted slightly, not stepping forward, not stepping away, just adjusting, because watching this did something he didn't expect. It didn't make him angry. It made him aware of everything he had misunderstood, of everything he had pushed away, of everything that could have been different if he had handled things differently. But this moment wasn't about what if. It was about what is, and what is was standing right in front of him. 3 children, a woman who had found her strength, a man who had stepped into responsibility without hesitation, and him standing outside of it, not excluded, just no longer central. One of the nurses glanced at Travis. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah." But his voice didn't carry certainty, because this wasn't something you process in a single moment. It unfolds, layer by layer. Harrison looked up briefly. Their eyes met. No tension, no challenge, just acknowledgement. Because both of them understood something without needing to say it. This wasn't about competing. This was about reality. Jade shifted slightly, her attention moving between the babies and the room around her. Then, her eyes landed on Travis again, not avoiding him, not confronting him, just seeing him, and in that look, there was no anger left, only distance, and something else. Peace. Travis, she said softly. His name didn't carry weight anymore. It carried recognition. He stepped forward slightly this time, not aggressively, not demanding, just present. I didn't know, he said. The sentence didn't finish, because it didn't need to. Jade understood what he meant. I know, she replied gently, and that was enough. No explanation, no defense, just truth. The room slowly began settling, the urgency fading, the noise lowering, but the impact of what had just happened stayed, because this wasn't just a birth. It was a moment of clarity for everyone in that room, and for Travis. It was the moment everything finally aligned, not in his favor, but in truth. And sometimes, that's what matters most, because truth doesn't ask if you're ready. It shows up anyway. And now, there was no avoiding it. Not anymore. The room didn't go silent all at once. It settled. The urgency that filled every second just moments ago slowly faded into something calmer, measured, controlled. The nurses moved with quieter steps now. The doctors spoke in lower tones. The tension that once demanded attention had shifted into something else entirely. Completion. Jade rested back against the pillows, her breathing steadier now, her strength no longer being tested but slowly returning. Her eyes moved between the babies, taking in each one carefully, not rushed, not overwhelmed. Present. Harrison stood close, still holding one of the babies, while the other two were being gently placed beside Jade. He adjusted his grip slightly, careful, focused. You good? He asked her softly. Jade nodded. I am. That answer carried weight, not because it was dramatic, but because it was certain. Travis remained where he stood, not frozen like before, not overwhelmed, just quiet, because everything he had been feeling earlier had changed shape. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was understanding. And understanding doesn't come with noise. It comes with stillness. A nurse walked over to Jade, checking on her briefly, then stepped aside. Another adjusted the blankets around the babies. Everything looks good, one of them said gently. Jade smiled faintly. Thank you. Simple, but genuine. Travis watched that exchange, and for the first time, he wasn't focusing on what he had lost. He was seeing what she had built, and that difference changed how everything felt. Harrison carefully handed the baby he was holding over to the nurse, then stepped back slightly, not away from Jade, just creating space. That movement didn't go unnoticed, because it wasn't about stepping out. It was about respect. He turned toward Travis. Not slowly, not cautiously, just directly. They stood facing each other for a moment. No tension, no build-up, just two men in the same space, connected by the same history. Travis, Harrison said, his tone even. Hearing his name from him felt different. Travis nodded slightly. Harrison, he replied. No hesitation, no resistance, just acknowledgement. There was a brief pause, not uncomfortable, just real. I appreciate you coming, Harrison said. That wasn't expected. Travis blinked slightly. You do? He asked. Harrison gave a small nod. Yeah, he said. No matter how things ended, you being here still means something. That landed because it wasn't said to impress. It was said because it was true. Travis exhaled slowly. I didn't know what I was walking into, he admitted. Harrison understood that. It showed. I figured, he replied. No judgment, no assumption, just understanding. Travis glanced briefly toward Jade, then back at Harrison. You've been here the whole time? He asked. Harrison didn't hesitate. Yeah, one word, but it carried everything. Every appointment, every moment, every decision, Everything Travis had stepped away from, Harrison had stepped into, and hearing that didn't create anger this time. It created clarity. Travis nodded slowly. "That matters," he said. Harrison didn't respond immediately, because he wasn't looking for validation, but he understood what that statement meant. "Yeah," he said simply. That was enough. They stood there for another moment, not as rivals, not as opposites, just two men who now understood their roles. Jade watched them quietly, not worried, not tense, because she could feel it. The shift, the absence of conflict, and that mattered more than anything, because this moment could have gone differently, but it didn't, and that made all the difference. Travis looked back at Jade. His expression had changed, not guarded, not defensive, open. "Jade," he said, stepping a little closer. She met his eyes, and for the first time since he walked in, there was no weight between them, just truth. "I'm glad you're okay," he said. She smiled softly. "Me too." That exchange didn't need more, because everything else had already been shown, through actions, through presence, through choices. The room remained calm, not empty, not quiet, just settled. And in that stillness, something important had already happened, not spoken, but understood. Because sometimes respect doesn't come from words. It comes from recognizing what's real and accepting it fully. The room had settled, not empty, not quiet in a way that felt distant, but calm, the kind of calm that only comes after something intense has already passed. Jade sat with the babies beside her. Kingston, Emery, Faith. 3 names, 3 lives, 3 reminders of everything she had walked through, and everything she had chosen. Harrison stood close, not hovering, not overstepping, just there, the way he had been from the beginning. Travis took a step forward, then another, not hesitant, not uncertain, intentional, because now there was nothing left to avoid. He stopped beside the bed, looked at the babies, then at Jade, and for the first time since he walked into that hospital, he didn't search for control. He chose honesty. "I owe you an apology," he said. No build-up, no defense, just truth. Jade didn't interrupt, didn't react immediately. She just listened, because this wasn't something she needed, but it was something he needed to give. "I didn't handle things right," Travis continued. "Not when it mattered, and not when you needed me to." His voice stayed steady, not breaking, not forced. "I made it about pressure, about plans, about everything except what it actually was." He paused briefly, not because he lost his words, because he was choosing them carefully. "You were carrying something important," he said, "and instead of standing with you, I stepped away." Jade's expression didn't change dramatically, but something in her eyes softened, because she could hear it. Not regret for the outcome, responsibility for the actions. "And I said things I shouldn't have said," Travis added, "things I can't take back." He exhaled slowly. "But I understand them now." That was the difference. Not just apology, understanding. Jade looked at him for a moment, then nodded slightly. "I know," she said. That response wasn't dismissive. It was peaceful, because she wasn't holding on to those words anymore. She had already moved past them. "I'm not the same person I was back then," Travis continued. Jade gave a small, knowing look. "Neither am I," she replied. And that was the truth. They weren't standing in the same place they once were. They weren't even the same versions of themselves. And that's why this moment worked, because it wasn't about going back. It was about letting go. "I'm glad you found something real," Travis said, glancing briefly toward Harrison. Harrison met his eyes, nodded once. Respect, simple, clear. Jade followed that glance, then looked back at Travis. "I didn't find it," she said gently. "I chose it." That line carried everything, because it wasn't luck. It was growth. It was knowing her worth. It was refusing to accept less than what she deserved. Travis nodded slowly. "That makes sense," he said. No resistance, no challenge, just acceptance. He looked at the babies again, Kingston, Emery, Faith, and for a moment, he allowed himself to feel something different. Not loss, not regret, but perspective. Because these children weren't a reminder of what he didn't have. They were a reflection of what life had built after he stepped away. And that was okay, because not every story is meant to be held onto. Some are meant to teach you, then release you. Travis stepped back slightly, not distancing himself, just giving space. "I'm glad you're okay," he said again. Jade smiled softly. "Thank you." That was enough. No long conversation, no reopening of old wounds. Just closure. Clean, complete. Harrison placed a gentle hand on Jade's shoulder. She leaned into it slightly, not for support, but because it felt right. And that small moment said everything, because love doesn't need to prove itself loudly. It shows itself in presence, in consistency, in the choice to stay. Travis looked at them one last time, not with longing, not with what-if thoughts, but with understanding. Then he turned and walked away, not empty, but changed, because sometimes growth doesn't come from getting what you wanted. It comes from understanding why you didn't. Jade watched him go, not holding on to anything, not questioning anything, just at peace. She looked down at her children, then at Harrison, and in that moment, everything aligned, not perfectly, but truthfully, because life doesn't always go the way you plan, but it has a way of giving you exactly what you're ready for. When you finally understand what matters, and sometimes the greatest strength a person can have is choosing themselves. Before we close, if this story touched you in any way, if you saw a part of yourself in Jade, or even in Travis, go ahead and like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this, and drop a comment telling me what lesson stayed with you the most. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because stories like this aren't just meant to be watched, they're meant to be felt and remembered. Your story might be next